just picking up, and it'll be interesting your insight. Let's pick up the training and leadership side of your organisation, and you say you now train people, particularly after they've left school. Now that's interesting. So does that mean that the education system is flawed, so that they have to come to you to be trained and then to get a job? Because that's traditionally why everybody, when they used to leave school, you either went to university or further education college, or you went into a job. Does that mean the education system is flawed? It's not doing what it's meant to be doing, that they have to come to you?
I think whenever you talk to business owners and particularly small business owners, they talk about they can't get the staff, and they can't get the people to do the job, and people have got qualifications, but they may not have the skills. So the two things are different. So qualifications is not necessarily skills, and skills is not necessarily somebody who's got the experience to do it as well. So all of these things come together, and it's really about competency. Is that person competent? At what level of competency do they have? So we used to have these NVQs. That was about proving your occupational competency. It wasn't necessarily about training, because that person has learned the job over a period of time. There may be some gaps in terms of some knowledge, but most of it was about proving that that individual had the competency to be occupationally competent to do a job at whatever level, whether if it's a level 2, level 3, level 4, whatever the case is. So there's an element of proving competency, but now what we're talking about is really about learning as you're delivering the work as well. So most of our training is about, say, training somebody at, say, 11 o'clock, and for them to deliver that because it's part of their job. It's learning really for a particular purpose. Yeah. So we assume that people have got the ability to learn, and they've got different ways of learning. But now it's really about training people for a particular purpose. So very relevant to their work. So so it might be, for example, how short courses. We're talking about sharp courses. We're talking about courses that are specifically for a particular job. So if you're a care worker, you've done manual handling, you've done these sort of basic courses which say you're competent as a care worker. But then what you're looking at is really enhancing that competency. So that might be now about how you go about looking at medication. How does that work? So we'll focus on those skills which then enhance what they already got, so they're able to do their job at a higher level. So it's really topping up. So a lot of this is about topping up skills, topping up. So you talk about they've already got a certain level of competency. It's about adding now structures to that competence, so they can say, yes, this person is occupationally competent to do that. Say, for example, administrators, they may be a good administrator, but they may not have written minutes before. So there's an element of training somebody on how to minute take. What does the format look like? How do you go about doing this and you practice that before you actually start doing that. And that could be done in a small classroom type environment, that could be done in a group session, that could be done in a sort of a peer session as well. And it's really about adding and topping up sort of skills, and really being in a position where the person knows what their gaps are as well, and really having a development plan. So a lot of the training is based on that. It's adding to what they already have. So it's education isn't the same as intelligence, as we know, but it's also about really being in a position where it's the shorter, sharper courses, and really delivering impact immediately.
So who pays for that? Who pays for those courses?
So some of these are government funded. So there's different programs. So there's something called Skills Support for the Workforce, which was an ESF program, and ESF funding is still around for a little while. So these are the shorter, sharper courses for that. Then you've got your apprenticeship programs, which are it's not just about young people. These are anybody really in terms of an apprenticeship program. So they're slightly longer programs. And then you've got your qualifications, which are very specific. It could be a digital qualification or marketing type qualification. It could be just on shorter programs. LinkedIn is another sort of training program that we do in terms of how to create a profile. So these are predominantly, most of our funding is funded from the public sector, whether it's
yes. The reason I asked that question is, whose job is it to train people? Is it the job of the public sector, or is it the job of the private sector? And at what point do you decide it's the public sector's job, and at what point do you decide it's the private sector? Because that's, and business people say to me, well, hold on, it's not my job.
Yeah.
That should be somebody else. And people in the public sector say, well, hold on, up to 16 we've done our job. Now if you want your business to flourish, you should invest in your people. And it's the dilemma, isn't it? So where should that cut off be? And you're really well placed to answer this.
That's a continuous sort of conversation that the industry, the welfare to work sector, the skill sector has, in terms of where that sits. A lot of it depends on localisms as well. So it's not just about public sector. In Downing Street, you've got local providers, and you've got skills gaps that are identified. You've got businesses that are struggling in terms of recruiting the right people, and you've got to look at the UK PLC as an economy as a whole. The public sector doesn't just give money for nothing. They have a return on investment calculator. They know exactly what that impact is going to be, or what their outcomes are going to be. So they continuously look at that, and whenever they introduce funds in, they look at the potential gain. And say, as an example, Kickstart is a program for young people that is about subsidizing wages. So you're not even talking about training here in terms of government paying for training. You're talking about somebody who's going to take on a young person effectively on a subsidy for a 6-month program. And you can say, why is the government subsidizing somebody's wage? The employer should be paying that. So you can take that even the next level in terms of why they're paying that. Why is the government paying for say grants to employ even an apprentice or any individual? And I think a lot of that is about as a catalyst, really. So it's to start things off, it's to get people going. And what they find is that where the biggest impact is about getting people from a level 2 to a level 3. So there's a lot of people who are employed, but there's no progression for them. So they're stuck in a job where there's no progression. The employer, for whatever reason, isn't investing, and what they're trying to get is really that productivity improved with that employer. So the employer sees the benefit of that. And also at the same time, the individuals can move from, say, level 2 qualification to a level 3 and get out of in-work poverty, which is one of our biggest issues as a country, where people are working, but they're still in relative poverty.
So I've sat on a LEP board for 9 years.
Yes.
So let me tell you my experience.
Yeah, please.
So we hear about the role of LEPs.
Yes.
We hear the role of councils.
Yes.
We then hear the role of government.
Yes.
Then we hear the role of colleges.
Yes.
Then we got schools.
Yes.
Then we got universities. Then we got private training providers. It sounds a real big mess. And could it be for that reason that we persistently appear to have a skills problem? I mean, why do we have that skills problem? And is it because there's too many people in there? And should government just let local people decide, or do you think government should keep a grip on it?
I mean, I think there's more joined up thinking than ever before.
Okay.
There's a lot of work across different sectors. Before that, you had higher education, just looking at higher education. FE, further education, just looking at further education, colleges on their own, independent training providers their own. You've got now schools going into the college market, you've got colleges going into the university market and so forth as well.
That's right.
Universities going into the college market. It's all mixed to a certain level.
Very blurred.
And people are going into different areas. So you've got you've got universities now doing looking at people from the age 16 onwards, technical qualifications and so forth. So there is a lot more where it's people are looking at different opportunities. Yeah, what that does is that allows us to really understand the fact that everything is connected. There's got to be an element where we've got to work on the same page. The individuals have got their own agenda to try and give more and grow more, and so universities are looking at more growth, and they'll see the fact that their market may have been impacted, so they'll look at competing in somebody else's market, or what was seen as predominantly somebody else's market, and likewise. And there is some partnership and there is some element of co-working, but what you find is you've got people now cannibalizing really in other markets, and what that does is creates more competition. And there has to be direction from government, and there is a direction from government. So there's the skills white paper that's come out. So there is direction, and the government has led in terms of direction for skills. So there's no doubt there is that. But what you're finding is that there's more opportunities. It's no longer the fact that you're stuck in a particular marketplace and you're just going to deliver in that marketplace. So you've got more and what you'll find is that the better providers will deliver, and ultimately, you talk about the consumer champion and the customer champion. The end consumer always benefits from any type of competition usually, and I think it's a positive thing in terms of generally. But there's a lot that has changed, and there is more and more change in terms of definitely taking place. But definitely a very fluid market, a lot of opportunities, but what you're finding is that everything is getting harder and harder as well. And what people were doing a few years back may not cut it anymore.